Eidolons, or commonly known as vertically investing in your characters. Short answer, no. I don't think it's worth anymore at this current point in time, but that is my opinion. Power creep happens way too quickly in this game, with 2 new characters being released every single patch. Characters from last year fall off hard a year later, and before that, I can't even imagine the thing about it. They kind of completely collapse unless they can be buffed. We are getting buffs for some older characters in the next patch, and we can only hope that they will keep that in mind to buff even more older characters. In this video, I will talk about 4 things: benefits from having Eidolons, why horizontal investment is better, should F2Ps even consider Eidolons, and finally, are there any Eidolons worth pulling as a spender? So, what are the benefits from pulling Eidolons? More damage aside, and other than the fact that you'll probably lose money in real life, firstly, that character will last longer. But it won't apply to every character, because not every character has good early Eidolons, or even good late Eidolons. Prime example are most of the version 1 characters, version 1 meaning from 1.0 to 1.6. Good Eidolons that make the characters last longer are like E2 Firefly and E2 Acheron, for example. Many of the quality of life are locked behind E1 or E2 for some of the characters. Technically, it's to bait you. Of course, it's a gacha game. Pull E1 or E2 to fix their issues. One example, Elyskye. But here's the trap, okay? Actually, right, some of them, right, like example Elyskye, she doesn't actually need her E1 to function. It will be more comfortable, of course. Or even some outrageous ones like pull E1 to ignore the mechanics. Looking at E1 3B, damage reduction, no problem. Just have true damage and you can just ignore the mechanic. It's a good practice to try out the character at E0 first before thinking of pulling their Eidolons. Most of the characters are complete at E0, and if you pull their premium team, you don't even need Eidolons. However, vertically investing doesn't 100% guarantee their longevity.
Oh no!
One example, if you pull for E2 Firefly and you skip Runway, or you don't have E1 Field, you might find yourself struggling since you skipped out on her crucial supports. Likewise with Acheron and Jiaoqiu, Elyskye and Sunday. Chapter 2. Why horizontal investment is considered better. First, horizontal investment means pulling new characters instead of getting the Eidolons on existing characters. Basically expanding your roster horizontally, so get more characters. It's better, in my opinion, as it expands your usable pool of characters to fit any kind of endgame content or activity. You need Wind, you got Fei Xiao, you need Quantum, Casteris is there for you. This way, it avoids the problem of, for example, you pull 3 copies of Fei Xiao to get E2, and Fei Xiao ends up not being able to help you much in Pure Fiction, compared to if you use those 2 copies of characters that you put, right? You go for Herter and a 3B, 2 characters, which also can work in other game modes as well. Horizontally expanding your roster also keeps things fresh. Can you imagine that every single endgame reset you just keep playing with the same team over and over again? You know, you get tired after a while. You have more options to play with rather than being stuck to the same teams. Pulling the new character is always better investment than pulling Eidolons for an old character, because the new character is always being shielded in the endgame content. One downside to horizontal investment is though, pulling too many characters that you do not need, or not completing their teams, just like vertical investment. So long as you pull right and ensure you complete those teams, you are good. At the end of the day, meta is always changing. Pull for your favorites. Chapter 3. Should free-to-plays even consider Eidolons? If it's your favorite character, sure, else my previous answer stands, I wouldn't. Remember the cons I mentioned in the previous two sections? As a free-to-play player, you do have a limited number of pools and you should be thinking how to spend them wisely. You could have used those pools for new characters instead of pooling for an Eidolon. Just my opinion though, I usually focus on 1 to 2 teams per version, at least on my free-to-play account. To recap, a version is like 2.0 to 2.7. While pooling any Harmony characters that do appear, because Harmony support rail. Like for example, version 3, where we are at now, my 2 teams on my free-to-play account are Elyskye and Castris, as they have 0 conflicting teammates. And I still have Fei Xiao sitting in the back for Apocalyptic Shadow. 3B could slot into any of them, but she is better with Castris. I also have Ranmi that can substitute into Castris' team if needed. I have witnessed many free-to-play accounts going for Eidolons. It works for them and then later on they struggle. Cause they did not pull any of the new DPS, and sometimes they pull for the Eidolon and then they never get the support. To be honest, this is probably due to HP inflation. If older characters were buffed, it might not be much of an issue. However, there is one good reason to pull for Eidolons on a free-to-play account, and that is for your support characters. Most of support characters are universal, and that extra pull does help your entire account, rather than a DPS Eidolon that only benefits a single character. Good support Eidolons are like E1 Ranmi, Robin, and 3B. Again, do note that supports can fall off later, even though they last longer than DPS, so be aware when vertically investing. Do you see yourself using those teams for a long time? Are the upcoming DPS that you want to pull for synergistic with those supports? Example, you wouldn't want to pull for E1 Robin if your main DPS is Castris, because Robin is an attack scaling buffer. These are factors you should consider. Chapter 4, the final chapter. Are there any Eidolons worth pulling as a spender? Okay, so very quickly, okay, I'll go through all of them. So for Yunli, E1 is worth pulling. E2 is not worth right now because there's not enough teammates with Yunli that will stack the defense. One day, if she does get some good defense shredding teammates, then yes, this E2 will be worth. Firefly, E2 of course. E1 is good for the skill points. Okay, then for these old characters, right, these 3 old characters, I would not pull for any Eidolons for old characters. However, these 2 are getting buffed soon, so we have to wait to see if these Eidolons get changed, and I'll probably make another video covering the buff characters. For my day, I believe his E1 is pretty good, makes him like a PF character, and E2 is the defense ignoring, so also pretty good. The Han, again, skip. Okay, Fei Xiao, E1 is pretty good. E2 is what you probably want to get. Helps us to stack faster. Okay, Boot Heal. E1 is good, the classic defense ignore on the E1 for all the super break characters. E2 is pretty good for recovering skill points, because he does burn through a lot of skill points. This break effect is not very important. Okay, Erudition. Jade, I probably would not pull for any Jade Eidolons. She's not really that great nowadays, except in pure fiction. But if you must, okay, E1 is where I would stop. This is good. Do not get baited by E2, it's just a 18% crit rate. Rappa, E1 is great, defense ignore, more energy. E2 is... it's kinda alright. You get more toughness damage on the first 2 hits, by the way. It does not count for the 3rd hit, which is the big one. Deater, she's still pretty new, so E1 is very good. Okay, helps with a single target. E2 is the good one. You know, she gets the extra inspiration stack and then advance by 35%. Anexa. So this one makes him more skill point positive and he gets the classic defense ignore. I would say if you run with Deater, there may not be that much defense ignore for this to be useful. E2 is basically lets him be Silver Wolf, you know, gets the 20% all type rest. Could be good, but I probably wouldn't pull 2 copies just to get 20% all type rest. Alright, these 2 skip their old characters. If they do get buffed one day, we have to see. Okay, Ranmi, she's not power crap. Okay, E1 is where I would stop. do not get E2. Okay, 40% attack when dealing damage to Venus Broken. It's very insignificant. Okay, Sparkle. Please do not get E1. If you want to get Sparkle's Eidolons, get E2. This E2 is really good. Robin. Both Eidolons are good. Okay, E1 and E2. Sunday. I will not get any of his Eidolons unless you play summon characters that he can be synergistic with. So not characters like Casteris. Basically, so far it's only really good with Eglire. Do not get E2. You don't need this. It's not worth a pull. 3B. Both Eidolons are great. But remember, this one is only good in AoE. And this is pretty good. Okay, Nihility. I wouldn't get the old character Eidolons, but they're getting buffed soon, so we'll see. Jiao Qiu. His E1 is not bad. His E2 allows him to play as Dot, but honestly, if you want to pull 2 copies just to play him as Dot, I would just wait for the next Dot character. Field. Both E1 and E2 are really good. This is a run. Nope, absolutely not. I did not just say that. Anyways, you still want to have Runmei even if you have E1 Field, but you can do without Runmei if you did get E1 Field. Mei substitute, and this gives her more energy and free dance. But Ellie, why did you pull for E1 Field if you said it was a Copium Runmei? Well, listen, okay. Unless you want me to zero cycle with this. Black Swan, only E1. Okay, E2 will be good in Pure Fiction, but honestly, okay, as someone who has E6 Black Swan, right, I will not pull 2 copies just to make her useful in PF. Just pull a good PF character, like Dioto. Acheron, do not get E1, go straight for E2 or don't pull. Don't pull for Eidolons. Okay, Preservation, I will not get any of the Eidolons. Just don't. E0S0 is good enough. Okay, Abundance, Lingsha's E1 makes her a monster. Still worth it, especially if you play Break. For Horse E1, it's good, but ask yourself if one entire character is worth the 12% speed buff and the SP positivity, especially when she's a sustain. At least Lingsha can do damage, you know. Remembrance. Casteris E2 is the strongest Eidolon in the game right now. So if you want to pull for Casteris Eidolons up to E2, will be really great. Hyacinth, one of the newest characters. E1 is really good in the Casteris team. I said this in my Hyacinth guide. And E2 is a 30% team-wide speed buff. And here we come to the fallacy. Is E1 Eglire unplayable? I mean, is Eglire unplayable without E1? No. But E1, it makes her so good, okay? It makes her a really good character, the top DPS. And you can even drop Sunday if you don't have E1. I mean, if you have E1. Oh my god, I can't speak. Okay, E2 is the classic defense ignore. This is pretty good as well. But honestly, I would stop at E1. This just fixes her energy issues. And that's all the Eidolons in the game. And with that, we have come to the end of this video. Thank you for taking your time to watch it. Take care and have a great day. Bye bye.